Go. I call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Welcome everybody to our regularly scheduled trustee meeting. Mr. Mayor, could you please call roll?
Mr. Rivers?
Here.
Ms. Taranto?
Here.
Mr. Grumbles?
And just so everyone knows, Trustee Grumbles had a work obligation he had to take care of today, so he will not be present for today's meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into our 10 o'clock zoning hearing, we have that today as well as our regularly business. Do we have any agenda changes for today?
No.
I do have for 12A under old business, I would like to table that for our next meeting. Do we have any public comments for items on today's agenda, excluding our zoning hearing? We do not. So with that, I would like to recess from our regular trustee meeting and begin our zoning hearing. It was scheduled for 10 a.m. This is zoning case ZON-19-03 for Evans Farmland Development Company, LLC. With that, I'll turn over to Ms. Bonnie.
I'll go ahead and read the legal notice.
Yes, please.
Notice is hereby given that the Orange Township Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 2nd, 2020 at 10 a.m. to consider the following application. Zoning application number zone-19-03 of Evans Farm Development Company, LLC. The application is an amendment to the currently effective zoning development plan for plus or minus 425.4 acres within the Evans Farm Single Family Plan Residential District. Approved under applications number 15-0105 in zone-17-07 of Evans Farm Development Company, LLC. And then I did provide a staff report to the trustees explaining the 7 changes that the applicant is proposing. Overall, this relates mostly to the sports park, and there were some modifications within the development standards for the homes as far as lot coverage goes and setbacks. The applicant's here, and I'll let him touch more on that. Thanks.
Mr. Iron.
Good morning. I'm Tony Ironman with Evans Farm. Address is 1550 Lewis Center Road, Suite B. From our approval for the zoning back in 2016, we've been working with staff and our neighbors in trying to clean up a few things, and that's what this application was for. Very quickly, I think there were 6 or 7 items. Mostly just housework, kind of cleaning up things. Per the zoning text, all model homes shall have off-site parking lot or off-street parking lot. Obviously, with the parade of homes and the number of houses there, the off-site. I'm hoping that's not my phone. Having off-street parking lots for each of the model homes for the parade was not able to be done. So we addressed things like that. The ball field lighting poles to reduce the amount of foot candles spraying off-site into the subdivision and off-site properties. Cleaning up items like the postal shed being a temporary structure, making it a permanent structure in the park. A lot with classifications we dropped from the application. Rear yard setbacks for structures of accessory structures in the backyards of residential units, lot coverage percentages in a few of the larger lot sizes, and then a cleanup sign, if you will, for getting rid of all the little plastic signs that are main entrance to identify which model homes are open. And those were the items that we submitted for, and we worked through the Township Zoning Commission. addressed all their concerns, and we're here today to request the trustees' approval as well.
You got the letters from all the residents,
I did, yes, and that, I updated the zoning resolution to reflect the owners.
and I think there was, something else.
Mr. McCarthy requested full-scale plans, and we did receive those.
I've not reviewed everything. We did have Resolution 20-121, adopting the recommendation of approval of the zoning commission as the zoning application ZON-19-03 of Evans Farm Land Development Company LLC.
Second.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
All right. So that officially closes the hearing for zoning case ZON-19-03 for Evans Farm Land Development Company LLC. And we will return back now to regular session. Next item on our agenda for today is our approval of minutes. Do you have any questions, Trustee Serena?
So when the recorder's not working properly, I assume that the minutes that we're going by is from this recording, is that correct?
Yes, correct. So there was a recent format change with YouTube that has caused some of the issues with the streaming.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a Delaware County IT here with us today. That's all been updated and fixed. Friday's meeting is going to be uploaded onto the YouTube channel that was recorded. Live streaming should be of no issues going forward. And we do still currently are using our two different, we have the live streaming video for YouTube as well as the individual camera providing two different recordings.
Great. So we'll use this one if that one is not working properly, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know there's also been some audio issues. I think for the most part, as long as everyone's close enough to the microphones, those should be okay going forward.
Okay.
According to the resolution, Debbie, all three, any recordings that are made automatically approved as official minutes.
Okay.
They shouldn't differ.
Okay.
So,
Then I'm fine.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-110, approving the electronic record of the proceedings from the February 18th, 2020 regular trustee meeting.
Second?
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Next item on today's agenda is our zoning report. Ms. Bonnie?
Yes. So today, we did hear application number ZON-19-03 of the Evans Farm Single Family Amendment, which the trustees just approved earlier. Following that is Tuesday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. Zoning Commission was supposed to be hearing the Turkey Hill signage application, but they are now tabling yet again. So we're working with the applicant as far as we need more application fees, and there might be a chance that this application will be withdrawn. I'm not sure at this point, but typically we don't advise them to table it this many times, so we're working with them on that. Following that is Board of Zoning Appeals, Thursday, March 19th. We are working on the agenda. I believe there's 2 signage variances for that evening. That'll be finalized at the next time I'm with you all. Following that is Tuesday, March 24th at 7 p.m. is zoning application number ZON-19-07. That will be the 3rd hearing on the Nova Lands at 6605 Columbus Pike. Hoping to wrap that up shortly after that. Lastly is Zoning Commission on Tuesday, March 31st at 7 p.m. That will be our zoning diagnostics review with the consultant Calfee Zoning that we hired to do the audit for us. And just to add, As a reminder, we are having our stakeholder meeting tonight for the US 23 Overlay District, and again, the open house will be on April 9th.
What time is it tonight?
The stakeholder meeting is at 6 tonight.
It's here. Can you tell me who the stakeholders are?
The stakeholders are involving, we asked a couple residents, I picked a few that I knew that owned a business here and also live in the township. I thought that would be a good perspective. Regional planning, county engineer. We're hoping to have somebody from the school district. I believe there's about 20 people that are attending this evening.
Can anybody come to observe?
This one isn't a public meeting,
Mhm.
which is why we wanted to have the open house to welcome everybody. But the Economic Development Department and myself, we try to make it a broad range of people for their input today.
Okay.
So hopefully it's a good meeting.
Thank you. Fill me in.
I will.
And the open house is April 9th here from 6 to 8.
Yes. And sorry, I'll be sending out a mailing for more invitations to get better outreach for that meeting too. So working with economic development on that, hopefully in the next week or so.
Thank you. Park report, Mr. Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on the agenda is the Preservation Parks letter of support. I received this request a week or so ago from Preservation Parks, along with the text that is in the letter. I think you have a copy of that. I have the original here for signing. Looking for support, naming a currently unnamed tributaries of Allen Creek. I want to name the stream McCammon Creek in honor of the family that's donated and helped so much in that area. I have the original here from the side. I don't have a resolution for that. Just looking for your support. Secondly, I have two field use agreements. Old Tangy Braves and the Orange Pioneers, both users or one of the users of Road Park Little League baseball fields. This should be the end of the field use agreements for this year. Or any questions for your approval for those. And then lastly, I have two purchase orders. One for MK Hardesty, the amount of $9,200 to rebuild a trail bridge. I bring the description of the location. I know where it's at. I just can't describe it. Cross Orange, West Orange Road here, East Orange Road. Back in a subdivision, the trail rides along a lake, and there's a bridge. The bridge is actually collapsed,
Oh, wow.
so it needs to be replaced. So that's what that's for. And the last one is for Patterson Pools. Purchase order in the amount of $4,268 to replace the pump at the pool facility. The pump has been rebuilt before. It's just worn out. We need to replace it. So, any questions? I'll be happy to try and answer them.
How did the scheduling go this year with Road Park? I know the demand's pretty big.
Road Park?
Yeah,
How did it
with
go?
the field use agreements.
Yeah, I've got them both here. I always send them out to the users before we bring them for your approval, and they were both in agreement with what they've got scheduled. So, assuming they're happy with that.
Did North Road make it easier? Taking less
Well,
stress
these are
off
the
of
only
one
two-
park?
These are the only two Little League baseball.
Baseball.
fields we have.
Okay.
So,
I make a motion to approve resolution 20-111, entering into an agreement with Old Tangy Braves Little League for use of recreational premises located at Road Park.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Franco,
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-112, entering into an agreement with Orange Pioneers Little League Incorporated for use of recreational premises located at Road Park.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Franco,
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-113, authorizing the issuance of purchase order of $9,200 to MK Hardesty LLC.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-114, authorizing the issuance of a purchase order of $4,268 for a new SHP pump to MK Hardesty LLC.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Going back to the letter of support, do we need consensus from the board on that?
I think we just need some signatures, but I think we're all in agreement.
I just want to put it on there.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public safety report, Chief Noble.
Good morning. The only item I have under public safety this morning, we've noticed with an increase in road traffic on South Old State, we've had a couple of occasions when we've attempted to respond out of that station on an emergency and traffic is stopped at the intersection of Orange and South Old State, and it extends well past Station 362 there. So we wanted to work with the engineer's office at taking a look at maybe striping in front of the exit ramp onto South Old State with yellow diagonal striping, maybe putting, well, there's going to have to be signage put up with that asks not to block that drive in hopes that it will ease our attempts to exit onto South Old State in responding to calls. So before we can engage the engineer's office to work on that, we need approval from the board to move forward. So I'm here today to ask for that. You have a resolution prepared, and then I'll need your signatures on a form to send to them, so if you're so inclined.
Do you work with the county to get the signage or with Bill?
The county, I believe we're working with the county totally on the striping
Okay.
and the signage. However, I will tell you that Aaron is aware of this and has been involved as well. So it'll be either the county or local. We just found out that the engineer wants approval from the board before we move forward.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-115, authoring execution of a request for engineering assistance with the Delaware County Engineers Office regarding the striping of South Old State Road in front of Fire Station 362.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fiscal Office report, Mr. Mayor.
I have two items. First one is a new liquor permit from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, Little Bear Hospitality LLC. And we just need consensus from the board that they do not require a hearing for this, unless you do.
No.
Yeah.
So we have consensus.
Thank you. The other is the 2020 permanent appropriation, and it's in the template as Exhibit A. And you'll notice it's a new format. It provides all the information that's necessary for the county auditor, but it does it in 4 pages instead of 16, and much more clear and easy to understand. And all of those totals came from the totals that I received from the department heads and in the most recent detailed appropriations document that the trustees received. I'm going to call attention to page 10 in your template. The capital projects, there's a fund that is 4101-60-700. It's been sitting there with some money in it for a number of years. It is for parks improvement. I don't know why it's been sitting there, but Mr. Cowan said he will be glad to spend it appropriately on a capital item in parks this year. So we need to appropriate that $650.10 so we can close that fund. Second one is a permanent improvement for fire station, and that's been sitting there with $1,940 left in it. According to the auditors, the fire chief needs to spend that on some sort of permanent improvement for the fire station. It's an amount of $1,940, and then we can close that fund. The next one is a future fire station fund that ended up with about $50,000 left in it. And last year we appropriated that, and Chief Noble was able to spend all but $37,000 of it on a capital outlay. He has said that this year he'll spend the rest of it before he spends his other money. So we can close that fund. Those funds are not really necessary anymore. But the money can't be transferred out. It has to be spent for the right item. The final one is a Public Works Commission fund entitled Capital Projects, and it has been carrying a $50,000 balance since at least 2011. I've done considerable research into it, talked to the auditor's office, and we're trying to determine when it got in there and why it's in there. This fund is only used for when grants are received from OPWC. They come into this fund and then they're paid out of this fund. We have to keep track of them that way. That's why this fund exists. There shouldn't be any money in there. I have done considerable research trying to find where the $50,000 came from. The auditor said if we can't find it, then the board should, at that time, transfer it to the roads fund because they have to be related to roads in some way. But first, I have to finish my research to make sure that that is the right thing to do. But it needs to be appropriated this year so that if we are ready to transfer it out, it can be done. Those are all the details I have. Any questions? I want to thank the department heads. We've met multiple times. They've given me great input. They've updated things as we needed. And without them doing all that, I wouldn't feel confident that these appropriations are correct. But I think that the department heads appreciate the fact that they really had a chance to think it through and make sure they had enough money for the things they need. One other thing I want to point out, as you know, appropriations are not necessarily what's going to be spent. It's the board allowing money in all the different areas so that it can be spent. But all expenditures still have to be approved by the board.
And I understand what you're saying, and I absolutely understand why you wanted to do this. If I could just share with you my concerns. Number one, transparency. What I really like, and Chief Noble is a perfect example of his appropriations. He has literally to the penny what every dollar is appropriated for. And that is a great benefit to me as I review what his wants are for the year 2020, what his needs are. I actually miss the days where we would sit down as a group and go over the budget for the year, where I would hear from each director what their wants were, what their needs were, what their wish list was. And we could discuss it. I still remember a couple years ago, somebody had wanted to join an association where I believe it was over $100,000. And we already were part of another similar association. But it was a great conversation of why we should or shouldn't. We ended up, of course, with shouldn't and saving the taxpayers over $100,000 by not spending money on something that we really didn't need. So when everything is thrown in under a heading called purchase services, that unfortunately is a red flag to me because taxpayers, they have no idea what you're spending money on. And I know many of them would be very curious as to what you're spending money on. That's why I like the detail that you get in, for example, from Chief Noble's appropriations. I just feel, and I do agree with you that there's a lot of stuff in there that's just a waste. It's taking up space. There's lots of zeros, you know. I don't know if you can delete those or not and just leave what exactly we spend our money on. But I think the public and the trustees both should know what the money is going to specifically, or appropriated. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be spent. Matter of fact, it rarely ever is. There was something else that we used to do. We used to show the previous appropriations, the detail, and then how much was spent. And then the current year that we are appropriating, and then what the actual balance is. And sometimes you'll find you actually save money from year to year. I was looking at 2014 appropriations, I believe, where it kind of had those breakdowns. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, those are all good points. First, I have looked for best practices. I've talked to the auditors, talked to the county auditor, and what this board has always done is approved appropriations at the family of object code level, which is what you were talking about.
Detail.
It's like the 100s, the 200s, the 300s that are listed. That allows department heads to move money around within that 100 or 200 or 300. They've always been allowed to do that. If not, anytime they want to make the slightest change, they have to have board approval. That's not what's recommended. The auditors say you should approve it either at the program level, which would mean in, for example, zoning's case, it could be one number, or next one down is the family of object codes level. That's what this township has always done. That's what the auditor wants us to do. That's what they want. As for the other information, I have provided to the trustees updated, detailed summaries of the appropriations. Along with that, I provided a copy of the appropriation status report for last year, which shows everything that was appropriated and everything that was spent. And then the other document is what we're asking for this year. So trustees would have all that information. Let's see, what was another question? And I offered, when the trustees received that, the purpose of sending it to them was so that they could go through. If they had questions, they could ask me. And I offered to meet with the trustees to go over and answer those questions. But also trustees can certainly talk to any department head.
Well, it's the department head's budgets, where it's not your budget per
Okay.
se.
Okay,
So that's who I would actually talk to.
that's your point. So the recommendation from LGS is that, first of all, I believe every department head should have a detailed budget. In our township, that's true. We have especially Chief Noble and Michelle, and Bill has developed a much more detailed budget this year since he just arrived a year ago. But appropriations and budget are not the same thing. I've talked to Chief, I've talked to Michelle and Bill about, you should have a budget that you know what you're going to spend. But the recommendation from local government services is that the appropriation should be about 20% higher than that, so that they don't run out of money. Again, they don't have to spend the appropriation, and the board has to approve. So I think we're doing it based on best practices. I think the department heads can chime in if they like in terms of process and how to help them to manage their spending.
So there's two things I'm hearing here. Ease of doing business and transparency. And for the public to flip through and these different, they're not the easiest to read. So I do think it maybe a good suggestion would be to have a breakdown of the departments and have something for the public to show obviously where the money's going, how we're spending our money, and have that maybe go with our appropriations. Because the reality is the appropriations, when someone looks at, can be very confusing because we do over budget for things, and there's things that we want to make sure that our activity and our day-to-day that we're paying what needs to be paid. But to your point, that probably is something that we should look at that would be helpful, is just the public, putting some things together by department that show how our money is spent and where it's going.
What do you guys think?
It's certainly up to you, the board, how you want to proceed. And I can only speak for myself, not my other department leaders. I will certainly do whatever you desire. To your point, Trustee Taranto, I remember the days when we would come and spend time going through our appropriations line by line and explaining and making sure that you, the board, understood where we were going. That did two things. Number one, that helped you, the board, understand what we wanted to accomplish. And number two, it provided the public an understanding of where we were expending funds. To this, I know I provide each of the trustees my proposed appropriations for the coming year, and I'm certainly open to answer questions of any of you at your leisure. So I can certainly do either. It is whatever you, the board, desires, and I'll certainly make that happen.
And I do my appropriations similar to Matt's, so I'm happy to provide it as a backup item for you to see the detailed, or what I'm planning on spending. But as far as I like the simplicity of it as far as when it comes to the resolution part of approving it, but I agree, I think it would be important for you to see the details of what we plan on spending.
So maybe we could do that, is have the simple one, but then have it attached with each of their budgets for the year, so we can see the detail and even, discuss possibly what your plans were and why this line item is there, and in case we don't already know. What do you think about that, Bill?
I agree. I think it'd be a good way to do it.
I was looking at Genoa's last night, and they still do it the way that we had been doing it. But you say that the county is good with this, correct?
Yes, well, in fact, the copy I got from Genoa is at no more detail than that. It looks a little bit like the other, but they have it approved in the same way that is recommended by the auditors, and that is at the family object code level to allow that flexibility. I think there's 3 documents. One is what we send to the county auditor to have them approved. Actually, there's 4. The other one is when they certify our resources, when that comes back, that should be included in the packet that we provide. All this is public record, everything. The third one is the detailed appropriation document that I gave you, fund by fund, that breaks it down by every object code. And the final one is the actual department budget, because it may be different, because they manage to their budget, not necessarily to the appropriations. So all those documents can and should be made public, and I think talking to the individual department heads to find out what they're doing with their, I sit down and go over with them to develop the appropriations, but I think the trustees should also do that. I think that they would all appreciate it. But I've enjoyed working with them, and I think we've made a big improvement in the way things have been done to simplify it and take advantage of the fact that we do temporary appropriations now, which allows us the time to spend this time after we have the year-end numbers to come up with really good numbers. I just think, and by the way, as of December, the state auditor has said that all townships are required to do temporary appropriations because of the problems that are incurred if you don't.
So we are in agreement that we would do this, but then also have a backup of each of their budgets so we can see the detail.
Actually, they've all seen those, but I'll send it out again for all the detail on the appropriations. This is just a summary by family code. I'm sorry, by object code family, and that's the level the county auditor wants that.
Great, thank you.
And the other thing we have to look at, by the way, is the reason this is important is to make sure that they don't appropriate more than our total resources by fund. This is a very interesting document for people to see. It shows the carryover, shows projected revenue in each fund for this year, and then it shows the total resources. And that's where, when we do the appropriation, I have to make sure that they don't over appropriate. We almost did in one fund, but we corrected it.
Well, and I'd be in favor of maybe adding some additional summaries for the public. It would help kind of give an overview and explain the departments and where money's going.
That would be great.
In fact, we put it all on the website. It's all public information.
Trustee Toronto, I will say that just that Chief, I was here when we did line by line, and That was good. I did like that. I do like this process where we have the temporary, we don't have to close the books, so we don't have vendors calling, wanting to know payment, and it just, we have good working relationships with them, and, having to wait for money. So that's good to keep the books open, but, I feel it's pretty, it's nice to be able to see it by the object code here, so I like that. But again, I like the backup piece to it as well. So that's additional. But I did see that for the Parks and Recreation under benefits, it is short in that fund does not have enough money that I had sent in, so I don't know, does that get corrected now, or do we approve it and then?
I updated with the numbers you gave me the other day. It should be in there.
It's not based on what I have.
Okay.
I don't know if we approve it and then make adjustment on the next one, we can work on that.
I would suggest that we approve it, and you and I can work on that. If it's not right, we can amend
At the next meeting.
at the next meeting.
Perfect, sounds good, thank you.
I know a lot of hours go into this, so I want to thank the staff and Mr. Mayor for the time you spent with me and going through this. I appreciate all your hard work and efforts.
My pleasure.
If I may, just want to be clear, Mr. Mayor, are you going to forward to the board the information they're looking for as backup to this? Or are we, as department heads, forward?
I think that if you have your individual budgets, I know Chief and Michelle does, and you have your own too. I think you can send your budget to them. I'll send them your appropriations, which are in the detailed document that Ms. Tranto was referring to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just have one point before you approve this. Under special fire levy, everything, each of the individual series of codes is correct, but the grand total on this is off slightly. It's off by 100,000. It reads 10,497 and it should be 10,597. So I think it was just an additional error here.
It was the contingency fund.
Okay, that didn't get added into.
No, it should be.
Okay, that's where because everything lines up with what we talked about on my spreadsheet, and each line here, it's just that grand total is off slightly. So I just want to make sure it was good.
Yeah, why don't we change that? That must have been my mistake.
Okay.
I had a lot of numbers working.
I understand.
But it is 10,597.
Very good.
So we'll make a plan at the next trustee meeting. We'll amend that, and we'll amend whatever you need to do. Also, at the next meeting, we'll be doing the annual appropriations and the annual blanket appropriations. Not appropriations, purchase orders.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-116, approving the township permanent appropriation measure pursuant to RC 5705.38A.
Second.
Mr. Rivers,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item is the administrative report.
I will go ahead and take that on,
Thank
Chairman.
you.
The first item is recognizing full-time Ohio Township service for recently promoted full-time firefighter David Grover for the purpose of vacation and accrual calculation, and that's based on our prior service policy that was implemented in 2016. So there's resolution and backup for you on that. The next item is accepting the transfer of 63 hours of sick leave to the credit of firefighter paramedic David Grover, and that's for their collective bargaining agreement. They're allowed to accept prior service time in the next most recent employment, and he worked for Scioto Township here in Delaware County. So it does meet that qualification.
Scioto Township.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
County. The last one is authorization of the reimbursement of sick leave to firefighter paramedic Christopher Mize. He had a BWC injury for their collective bargaining agreement. They use sick time until injury leave can be approved, and it has been vetted out, and so he would get his sick leave, reimbursement and injury leave in lieu of that for their collective bargaining agreement. And there's backup and resolution for that as well. If there's any questions. Thank you.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-117, recognizing prior full-time Ohio Township service of David Grover for the purpose of vacation accrual calculation.
Second.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-118, accepting transfer of 63 hours of sick leave to the credit of firefighter paramedic David Grover.
Second?
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
I make the motion to approve resolution 20-119, authorizing the reimbursement of sick leave hours to firefighter paramedic Christopher Mize.
Second?
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to old business. A was tabled. B, discussion of township renovations.
Yes. Trustee Grumbles was going to get with an architectural type firm to assess the needs of the township hall as far as office space. And I know that he's been very busy, so Mr. Cohen and I discussed it, and we feel that we can work with some of our current on-call consultants to do a review of the township hall and what our needs are, so that we can move forward on these proposed renovations sooner than later. It's kind of getting dragged out. So are you in support of that?
Was it Corda that we discussed looking at it? And it would just be an assessment of the building and how the space is being used?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
The recommendations.
yes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of space here. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah, I would support that.
So I make a motion to allow Mr. Cohen to work with our on-call consultants, Corda, with evaluating the space in the township hall for possible future renovations.
Second.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes. I believe that covers all.
Trustee Chairman, I know there was discussed regarding proposed agenda changes. We did discuss it in our leadership team meeting, and we were to provide feedback. Is that something you'd rather have in an email or?
Yeah, I'll get with you.
Okay, that sounds fine. Just wanted to make sure.
Great. Anything else we have to add? All right. I make the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.